Bring in Joel Klatt, Fox Sports college football analyst. Who would you take, Joel?
Clearly, Jesse Palmer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't feel like that's much of a question, right? But
well, you're at least in the conversation. You're all three quarterbacks, former quarterbacks, but Palmer did go to the NFL, and he was the Bachelor. So I'm going Palmer all day on that.
he's had a better social career and professional career. I mean, so, and that's two straws there.
All right. Well, Joel, thank you for coming on. That's all we wanted to
Of
ask
course.
you about. Why are you all upset about what's going on at Michigan? I saw where you want heads to roll here.
Well, I do. Dan, I think a lot of it spurs from how my own career went. I dealt with concussions to a pretty severe degree, including the last one that I had in the Big 12 championship game against Texas in 2005. It put me in the hospital. And at no point did I ever feel like the program was bigger than my health. I never felt as if a trainer was trying to appease a head coach rather than, look out for my best interests. At no point during my career. And I think that's their specific job. A trainer on the sidelines, their job, especially on game day, is to protect the player from himself, protect the player from the coach. Is that player's got to be first and foremost in his mind. And then the coach, I think his very specific job, when you boil it all down, is to put players in position to be successful, not only personally, but schematically.
Can you take yourself out, though? If you're concussed, do you have the mental capabilities of saying, I need to, sit on the bench. I need to sit down?
No, I don't think you do, and that's why those fail safes are there, right? I mean, that's why the trainer is there. I know I always tricked myself into going back in. I would find my helmet. I would do whatever I could to get back on the football field. And I think any player in college football that has that competitive streak, especially a quarterback, is going to want to get back on the field.
But is this a fireable offense, though, for Brady Hoke?
The thing that makes it so egregious, I feel like now, as opposed to in the past, is that we do know things about CTE and long-term effects of head trauma that are frightening. And the fact that we don't know everything about it is even more frightening. And so with this being the singular biggest issue threatening football at any level, I feel like allowing a player, especially a quarterback, who takes hits in defenseless positions quite a bit, to play after being clearly woozy, I feel like is an egregious action. It was sickening to me. It was probably more sickening because of my personal history. But to see him back on the football field was, I felt like an egregious thing on Saturday.
And fireable?
Absolutely. I would say even more so than the record, because if you're getting paid that much money to be the head coach, then you're going to sit in living rooms, Dan, and you're going to say to parents, whether they're single parents or still married, your son should come play for me because I'm going to care for him like you do. I'm going to care for him like my own son. Well, I've got two sons, Dan. I've got two little boys. And if I ever treat them with the same disregard to their health that I saw Michigan treat Shane Morris, shame on me.
Talking to Joel Klatt, Fox Sports college football analyst, joining us, Dan Patrick Show. For those of us who haven't had a concussion, give me the sensory overload. How's it feel? What do you see? What do you think?
Well, unfortunately, I don't remember all that well. But I will tell you that anytime that you get hit, and especially it's a head hit, and you go black, all of a sudden your eyes are open and you just can't see anything. That's the way I was explained that you've been concussed to some degree. And then the effects thereafter will usually rate the degree of which that concussion falls. For me, I would fade back in. I'd be very woozy. I'd have a hard time reading. I would feel like I was on a boat. And those were the symptoms that I had to deal with. I would get nauseous occasionally. And then, I would not remember most of the game afterwards. And a few hours afterwards, whether it was on the plane flight home or at home once I got back to my apartment or house, I would sit there and just think to myself, what happened today? What was going on? I don't remember. People would be like, "Oh, my teammates would ask me about this third down or that," and I would say, I don't remember that. And so that was my personal experience, but I do know that it varies pretty widely based on individuals.
Yeah, I had a concussion. I got nauseous, and that's I remember being able to walk, but I don't remember seeing. And I remember being nauseous after it happened to me, and I had headaches that would come back. The light, any kind of bright light, bothered me.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
but I go back to when Merrill Hodge told me that he would leave his house and he would forget to get back home. He wouldn't know how to get back home, that the concussions had that kind of effect on him. So we're just still learning about all of this and how somebody on the sidelines at Michigan, if the head coach didn't see it, somebody didn't say, look, Shane is out. Shane's in trouble here. When they start
Exactly.
signaling, it's not because he's got a leg injury. It's because he's really, really in trouble.
And as I said before, it's an area that we don't know enough about to be able to say, well, he's okay, we can put him back in. Whether it's a mild concussion or a severe concussion, we don't know what the long-term effects are. It's not an ACL. An ACL, everyone's going to go and get the same surgery. Some surgeons are better than others, but everyone's going to go and get that repaired the same way and then go through rehab, and their body is going to react however it reacts. A concussion, we still are finding things out, like some people are genetically more, predisposed to concussions than others, and the effects are greater on some people than they are on others. So why take a chance? There's no reason to take a chance, and that's why in today's day and age, with what we do know and still don't know, to allow someone to go back on the field, especially in college football, an amateur athlete, to have him go back on the football field and not protect him from himself and then say, well, there was a lack of communication, we're sorry, go blue, that doesn't fly with me.
But, Joel,
put on a headset and take care of your players.
But what you're saying is Brady Hoke knew that his quarterback had a concussion or had some kind of damage there and chose to put him back in that game.
Whether he did know or didn't, it's his job to know. That's what comes with the territory of being the head coach, right? If you don't have the protocols lined up on your staff, and your staff includes the training staff, to communicate something that is that severe, then shame on you for your lack of control, not only on the sidelines, but clearly in the staff room as well.
Right.
So in this point, I'll take a line from Roger Goodell in the NFL that's being used against him. Ignorance is not an excuse for me in this instance.
All right, run down the best college football game of the weekend.
I think a sneaky game is Oklahoma TCU. I think it's a fantastic football game. I think that if TCU just had an ND attached to it, and Notre Dame, they'd be in the top 10. Their defense is sensational, best in the Big 12, and their offense, with now Doug Meacham and Sonny Cumbie being co-offensive coordinators, they've gone the opposite direction of what Gary Patterson is used to. They don't play it safe on offense. They run 90 plays a game. And I think this is, and I know Baylor's still left on the schedule, Dan, for Oklahoma, but because Baylor goes to Norman, I think this is Oklahoma's biggest test on their schedule thus far. And if they get past this one, I would expect them to go undefeated. So that's a sneaky one right there. But all the SEC matchups I'll have my eye on as well. Those are fantastic.
Can Ole Miss beat Alabama?
I don't think that they can. Bo Wallace is just too much of an enigma. He throws too many interceptions, and then he all of a sudden looks great. And Alabama forces you to play great all the time. The level of perfection that you got to play with if you're Bo Wallace this weekend, I think is probably unattainable for someone that's as inconsistent as he is.
What do you think of Brett Hundley? We had him on last hour.
I love Brett Hundley. I was able to see that game and do that game last week against Arizona State. I thought it was his best game as a Bruin. He looked clean. He looked like Russell Wilson, manipulating the pocket. He was scrambling to throw rather than scrambling to run, and the ball came out of his hand quicker than I've seen it come out of his hand before. They looked explosive, and I talked with him before the game. Dan, he seems motivated, and that slow start, I think, lit a fire under that team. I wouldn't be surprised if they're there in the end as well.
Have a great weekend. We appreciate your opinions. Thank you, Joel.
Absolutely. And again, Jesse Palmer all day long.
Yep. Joel Klatt.